So, Amazon Games has announced quite out of nowhere that they are making preparations of a new Lord of the Rings game. But not just any Lord of the Rings game, a Lord of the Rings MMO. If a Lord of the Rings MMO sounds really familiar to you, there's probably two reasons why. First, there already is a MMO called The Lord of the Rings Online, which is sort of an old cult favorite in the MMO scene. Second, Amazon did try to start development on a Lord of the Rings MMO previously in 2019, so this is actually their second attempt in doing so. In fact, apparently the game had started development with a partnership between Amazon Game Studios and Leyou Technologies Holding Limited, the latter of which was bought out by another corporate overlord, who you may be familiar with, Tencent, which holds proprietorship of League of Legends and PUBG Mobile, with a lot of their fingers in a bunch of different places and sauces, even recently buying out Turtle Rock Studios. Agreement could not be reached apparently between Amazon and Tencent in regards to the Lord of the Rings MMO project by the year 2021, even though they started development in 2019. Now, with this news of a brand new shiny Lord of the Rings MMO yet again, it's provoked some reactions from the Lord of the Rings online player base. Community Manager Cordovan of the current Lord of the Rings Online MMO, which is currently managed by the company Standing Stone, had this to say. Hello everyone. During the past few days, we received a number of notes from excited and concerned community members about a new MMO coming to the Tolkienverse from Amazon Games. Some folks have asked what this means for Lotro. I'm going to call it Lotro. We wanted to give everyone in the community an update and assure you all that Lotro is not going away. Like you, we, and our partners at Middle-earth Enterprises are huge fans of Lotro. It is beloved, it is 16, it is evergreen. Lotro is like the long-lived Ents, elves, and dwarves, and we mere mortals are the stewards of Lotro and its community. Standing Stone has every intention of growing and supporting this community. The road goes ever on. And seemingly in response to the array of reactions from gamers and journalists, Christoph Hartmann, the vice president of Amazon Games, who had previously expressed his desire to create the largest MMO out there, along with making a few other statements which actually have some parallel to Steve Sheriff of Intrepid Studios, that's currently still working on Ashes of Creation, has said that there is no reason for The Lord of the Rings Online to stop maintaining itself, saying in an interview with Games Industry, "First of all, I have a lot of respect for them to keep it going that long. They have a not huge, but a very dedicated fan base. But looking at just the technology, where we're at now, and where we'll be in a couple of years, it's just worlds apart. It's a little exaggeration if I say it's going to be like black and white movies, to color, but that's the approach I want to take. It's just a completely different world. I think the games actually can coexist, even the most likely scenario is for people just to move over, because the other is an old game. It's not a bad game, but the industry moves on at some point, and it's a long time from their release to ours." So again, just to clarify his statements, he's referring to the fact that The Lord of the Rings Online came out in 2007, right? And with the development of this new MMO, it's probably going to come out in the 2030s at the current rate, as you'll see later on in this video. But why now? Why has Amazon suddenly said, okay, we're going to make or try to make a Lord of the Rings MMO for the second time? Well, they've struck a deal with Embracer Group, which is a Swedish company that oversees subsidiaries you may be familiar with, which in turn possesses different IPs and studios such as Gearbox Entertainment, PlayOn, THQ Nordic, and Coffee Stain Holdings. So games that you might recognize that have come from or been published by some of these entities I've mentioned include Kingdom Come Deliverance, the Metro franchise, Saints Row, Dead Island 2, and Satisfactory. And very recently, Embracer Group took over Middle-earth Enterprises, the company that controls the rights to a good amount of JRR Tolkien's intellectual property. So, Embracer, combined with Amazon, reached an agreement. They have an immense arsenal of resources at their disposal, yet, for some reason, I'm not really excited about this, because, well, I guess it's Amazon. I didn't exactly get hyped up for New World because I didn't really see a vision for it coming from Amazon or Amazon Game Studios. I have some doubts as to what the vision for a new Lord of the Rings MMO is. While perhaps just like how the Elder Scrolls franchise took advantage of the long timeline to put in an entirely different period of time with its own setting and characters, Lord of the Rings, if you've read any of Tolkien's writings, can more than easily do the same thing, and perhaps better, within a game setting. However, I don't know though if Lord of the Rings as an MMO, or even, I think definitely as an MMO, if it can work out. What's the PvE going to look like? What's the server structure going to look like for population related aspects? What's the vision for the game or combat play? What's the reward system going to look like? What's the monetization? What are the incentives? How much content will there be at launch? We can't forget about New World. And all these usual questions I have, whether I'm coping or hoping whenever a new MMO title comes along, feels even more daunting for Lord of the Rings. That will have a huge amount of expectations for it, and for that reason alone, I just don't really have any expectations for it. It's not like I wish for it to fail. In fact, I hope if or when it comes out eventually in the far future, it'll do great. But as a MMO player, I just for some reason don't feel hyped for it as much as I do for a potential League of Legends MMO or a brand new, completely different world setting like Ashes Creation has proposed. Something that's a bit more new, a bit more risky. But yeah, Christoph Hartmann seems to recognize these issues facing a potential, well, not even just a Lord of the Rings thing, but an MMO thing, and seems to have revealed some of his thoughts in regards to what I've raised so far in the video. He says in the interview with Games Industry, everything is about instant reward, and since social media and internet and so on, that instant reward thing is so important, says Hartmann. It has to be faster and faster. If you just rely on people figuring out the mechanics very fast because it's very similar to what they had before, that's great. But it's all about accessibility and very early having rewards so they feel progress, and then slowly letting them get better and better, and basically giving them an option they can start at a different pace and not getting frustrated. That's what's important. It's also a big problem for many PvP games to ever get new people. You take something as brilliant as League of Legends as it is, but how many new people get into it because you just get yelled at? So far the statements he made are pretty neutral. They're kind of like, things you would say in terms of getting people interested. Of course, who wouldn't want more rewards? Who wouldn't want a good paced gameplay? Who wouldn't want, finally, maybe a MMO that has good PvP and can sustain that good PvP? But again, these are just neutral statements that don't really give me much confidence. But again, I look forward to what he and his team will reveal in the far future. So I'm kind of withholding my judgment. All I'm saying here at this point is I'm not really too excited about a Lord of the Rings MMO. But for those of you curious or even hyped as to when it's coming out, well, they just started prototyping and have started the early beginnings of development. Christoph Hartmann basically says, but for me, it's still very important that it's first a game, and then the reflection of the books second, which kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with the game setting. So while I need to stay true, I always, and I'm reminding the team already, I get it, but it's not about every person going and pointing out if that detail is 100% perfect. Let's say the way Tolkien describes the world, maybe the landscape looks a bit different because we either can't get it going or the art people might feel it might look a little different than what people assume is in the book. He continues to say, I definitely want to put the game first to make sure it's a great game because, as I said, we want people to play for 10 years. It's not going to help me if someone is saying that's a perfect representation of the book in a game. If you're really into that, read the book. Read it another 5 times. Otherwise, if it's a game has to do with playing, and they have to be playful, so there needs to be a little bit of being able to bend the rules to make it a great game. It's done when it's done, and when it's ready. Christoph Hartmann says, that's it. I want that thing to be alive for 10 years plus. We're not going to ship something which is not ready. Obviously, we'd all like to come in as soon as possible out of personal interest, but we're only going to get it out when it's finally or really ready to go. Yeah, so that's all his statements so far, what we know in terms of his thought process with Lord of the Rings Online, or rather Lord of the Rings Online and the future Lord of the Rings Online if it happens, and kind of like the beginnings of potentially the next big MMO question mark, but probably not, in my opinion. In the meantime, though, if you're still kind of like starving for Lord of the Rings content. My good colleague Sawman UK made a video covering if it's worth playing Lord of the Rings online in 2023. And also, you know, if you're into non-MMO games, there is actually a couple of games coming out this year that have come out this year, such as Gollum, Heroes of Middle-earth, and I think there's also a mobile game, or maybe that's Heroes of Middle-earth. But anyway, it's an interesting time for Tolkien-inspired works or Tolkien IPs, considering that there was also a TV show recently made about it, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are you excited for a Lord of the Rings MMO, or are you just kind of like on the fence, or just at this point kind of giving up on MMOs, which a lot of people I know have. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.